Welcome back to our course, Introduction to the Java Programming Language. This is a production of Coding Boot Camps. In this lesson, we're going to take a deeper dive into classes and objects. This is session 7, and session 7 will have 5 different videos. So our recap is getting quite long, but we have covered application architecture, computer architecture, the Java virtual machine. We have discussed installing your IDE. We've discussed classes, instantiating classes, methods, declaring methods, arrays, if statements, for loops, and while loops, and that other types of constructs, conditional constructs such as ifs. So we're really making a lot of progress. Our objective here, we're going to talk about controlling access to members of a class. And then we're going to talk about referencing the current object, overloading constructors. We'll take a deeper look into that. Default and no argument constructors, composition of classes, garbage collection and destructors, a finalize method, and static class members. The materials are just these PowerPoint slides and possibly some lab reference material. So encapsulation, we talked about encapsulation, and encapsulation is a concept in object-oriented programming. It is used for controlling access to members of the class, such as the data, such as the methods. Gets and sets are actually access points for the instance of the class. So we saw that gets and sets were methods that set the value of an attribute or data. And our get actually returned it back. So when we instantiated the class, we're able to call the get for the data that we need. So that way, the data is only accessible to the class through the object. And we are working with the class on all the permissions that were required by the business. If there was no method a get method for private data, the data would be completely hidden within the class. So if we look here again at this example, this is a class in CapTest. We saw something very similar to this. Has these 3 private attributes, name, ID number, and age. So again, we are modeling a student here. We have our set name, our set ID number, and our set age, and we're passing in the appropriate data, integer and strings. And then, so once we set that, once we instantiate in CapTest and then call these 3 methods, we are setting the value of these 2 private strings and this integer age. Then in order to access that, we've got to go back to the encaptest object, whatever object we created from class encaptest, and we have to call the get methods. And the get methods will return age into an integer, will return the name to a string, and return the ID number to a string as well. So the only way to access this private data is through an instantiated object of this class. And if we take a look here, we see that we have the encaptest right here, and we have another class called runEncap. And we have our method here. And you can see here we are instantiating encaptest because provided that these 2 classes can see each other over the network, I could have one main method in one class. It actually instantiate both classes here. So we have our, we created encap based on encaptest, and we set the name, set the age, and then set the ID number over here. And then we want to call these gets because we want to output this information. So what do we have to do? We create this object called encap based on encaptest, and then we are calling get name, right here and get age. And we can't see the other member there, but I'm sure that's get ID number as well. We can see we're concatenating all that information. So let's take a quick look at an example we did a little earlier. This is a class called student, and what we did was we created a student project and created a package called student and then a class called student. And here we have this private data, and the way that we are going to access this private data is by creating an object, my student, based on student. So now we have access to the setting methods. So this is where we can set the age, set the name, and set the ID number. And we can also return the information. So we can get age and return it to an integer, get the name by calling that on my student and return it to a string. And then my student again, which is the object created from student, we can call get ID num and return that. So we'll certainly get an opportunity to take another look at this, but that is the background behind encapsulation.